The desire to serve people is innately in me. I was 22 when we found out I was going to have a baby, and at that point I had felt like I'd failed. Everything just come flushing before me like, oh, I'm just basically, he's going to have a life like I had, you know, I'm not ready financially. And it was a horrible time, but it really put a rocket up my backside. It's much easier to optimize your life now for freedom than it is to chase financial freedom. The desire to serve people is innately in me. I want to serve people, and I want to do the best in whatever I do for people as well. What do I protect? Yeah, my time.
Before we get into today's conversation, this is genuinely relevant for a lot of founders listening. Are you running a business that pays suppliers abroad, receives international payments, or operates across borders? World First helps founders manage global payments and FX more efficiently with access to competitive exchange rates and tools designed specifically for growing businesses. World First have given us an exclusive offer for podcast listeners to get 50 transactions completely fee-free for 60 days. Head to worldfirst.com/screwit to create a free account and claim now. Now let's jump into the main conversation.
So Jason, welcome to the show. For anyone who doesn't know you yet, how do you describe what you're doing today?
What I'm doing today is really just focused on producing content. I guess I'm a YouTuber nowadays, where a lot of my energy and attention goes into creating educational content for that platform, to really help people become empowered around not just money, but freedom, you know, total freedom and what that actually means. Because I think I've witnessed a lot of people just chase money and they don't end up with much freedom. I've seen a lot of people chase, you know, spiritual awareness and they don't quite reach that level of freedom that they think they'll reach. And I know people that are great at making money, great businesses, and yet they're not free because they kind of have to keep on this treadmill and keep making that money. So what I believe freedom to be is quite a unique angle at what most people, or the traditional kind of view on freedom. So I want to help people, learn about what that is. And ultimately it's contentment and just knowing when enough is enough, you know, and having a life that you wake up every day and you just feel happy to live. So that's primarily my objective at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion then, because again, through, you know, speaking to 600-700 entrepreneurs on this, not including all the live events I've done over the years with Virgin Startup and my own podcast. So many people I know who think they've got freedom, but like you say, they don't, because they're not free from the decisions that they're making in that business. They're still called upon to be there and do stuff. Out of interest, before we kind of dive in, do you find most people, you know, what you get, the feedback you get from your channels, is it financial freedom? Is it location freedom? Is it, you know, what are people searching for? All of those things, I guess, right?
Yeah, and initially people are chasing financial freedom, right? Because they feel that that's the answer to everything. But you just mentioned, you know, Richard Branson, and I was on Necker Island with Richard Branson, and the funny thing is, when you're a kid, like you're 7 years old or whatever, you're out playing with your friends, and you're playing like football, knocking a ball around, climbing trees, and you know, getting up to mischief. And when your parents call you in, it's like for bed, you know, it's like, oh, for God's sake, you know, when I'm older, no one's telling me what to do. I'll be free as a bird when I'm an adult, you know. And as people become adults, you see them become less free, you know, and further away from who they were as that 7-year-old kid who really only did things in the moment and was inspired to do things. And funnily enough, when we went to Necker Island, I was invited, fortunately and luckily enough, to be invited to spend a week on Richard's Island with him, and 40 of these like entrepreneurs who were at the pinnacle, you know, from the outside perception, these are the people that are at the top of their game. And when I sat down, I realized that all of those people at the top of the game, like the end game, they'd spent their time and money to be on an island, playing tennis, kicking balls around, climbing rocks, swimming, you know, dinner time stories and early bedtimes. And it was like, wow, you know, if that's already in us. You know, our ability to be able to do what everyone's chasing is already there. I think there's something to be said for that. I think people are missing the trick. And back to your question, it's much easier to optimize your life now for freedom than it is to chase financial freedom. So a lot of people, as you say, they're in a job where their calendar is filled with things that they shouldn't be doing, or things that they are uninspired to do, or really inefficient ways of doing things. The way of they're making money isn't very efficient, or they're not doing something that they enjoy, right? So imagine if you really know who you are and you're doing something you enjoy and you're really inspired to do it and it doesn't feel like work and you would happily do that every day. At that point, you are free, really, you know, because you're not really subordinating to this idea of one day I'm going to retire. Instead, you're thinking, I just love, I'll pay for my lifestyle costs doing this thing every day because it's amazing. So it's financial freedom is just how much time you could buy into the future if you need to stop. You know, if you have to look after a loved one, or you become injured or something, touch wood you don't, but that's really financial freedom. But the only people that immediately chase financial freedom is because they're trying to escape something. And I think it's easier to look at what they're trying to escape and optimize that and make that better than it is to actually achieve financial freedom. And it's easier to do that.
It's that thing, isn't it? Are you running towards something, or are you running away from something?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize you're out there with 40 other entrepreneurs, because I saw, and I guess it's just who I follow from being guests on the show, because I could see, Daniel Priestley and Al Barrett, who've been on the show a couple of times each. Who did you know, like, before you went out there, and who did you become kind of friends with? Did you kind of like resonate with and connect with?
Yeah, well, Dan was the guy that invited me because we are friends, and then I knew a couple of people from his network. There's a guy called Josh Thomas, who's an accountant, and then Steve Oddy, who's the co-founder of ScoreApp, Sebastian Bates, who runs the Warrior Academy. I'm business partners with him as well. So there's kind of a few connections. And then when I was over there, I met Al Barrett, which is great. A guy called Dom, who owns the Runner app, who I just sold that to Strava, and a number of other great entrepreneurs. It was fantastic.
From that week, there must have been, a gazillion, kind of moments, but what were kind of like maybe a couple of the takeaways? I know you posted on like your Instagram and stuff about it, but for those who don't follow you already, what are kind of a couple of the biggest takeaways from spending that time with the big man himself?
Biggest takeaway for me was health first, for sure. Yeah, and I think that really was the biggest takeaway for everyone. You get up at 5:30 in the morning to meet everyone, and Richard's already played a game of tennis, and he's now, leading the way up this 2,000-foot mountain on a bike, and it's like, wow, I'm 44, and I had to get off my bike a few times to get up that thing, and he did not get off his pedals, and I just think it's so admirable, and he actually said one day, he said, if you put your fitness first, you put yourself first in the morning, and it expands the whole day. Everything it expands time, and I totally understand what he means. But I think that was the biggest eye opener for a lot of entrepreneurs. Fortunately enough for me, I'd trained a bit for it, and I was in a bit of good shape. But a lot of the people were like, "Wow, this is really." They developed like a conscious thing, which I think was deliberate. I think that was all part of it, but it was great. I mean, what more important thing than health? And the other thing is, Richard's really a man of just maybe not a lot of people know this, but he's not a great business person. Like, he's technically not a great business person. He's just he comes up with great ideas to solve problems, and then he just gets great people to do things. He's a master of delegation. He doesn't know the intricacies of business. He just goes, this is what the problem I want to solve. I've got a real niggling feeling about this. I don't think it's right. I want to solve it. Let's get the best people in. And he sees the best in people, and he just delegates it, and he gets people on board through influence. And basically just getting on the front page of magazines and newspapers, you know?
Yeah, he's fantastic at PR and marketing, isn't he? You know, like old school, you know, and I've used this example many times on the show, but I remember seeing, you know, when I was at Virgin Startup, and he started a couple of businesses, one of them being Virgin Sports, and he just went out and he got the CEO of the biggest, which I didn't know at the time, biggest, sporting event in the world, which was the New York Marathon. And he got her, put her behind a desk, and he gave her like 3 support staff, right? But, you know, incentivized her with shares, etc. But not like you'd think, like his 30 or 40 people to start the business. Literally 3 people, you, a desk, laptop, crack on, and I'll be around in 90 days if you want to have a chat. Let's see how you're cracking on, you know. And I just saw it time and time again with these new businesses. It's amazing.
I saw when we were over there, funnily enough, it was October 25, so depending on when you're listening to this, but he was just like, every now and then he'd stop playing tennis and he'd be on his iPad with his PA, and they're like having these little meetings with a cup of tea and stuff. And what it amounted to was he was just finalizing, like, launching a competitor to Eurotunt, like Eurostar. And it's like, what? You know, I thought it'd look a little bit different to this, but no, he's just like, yeah, it goes live like in 2 weeks. Just crazy. He's just the king of, like, let's just try, you know, let's just do it and figure out how it works later on.
And it's funny because to think back, like when I started at Virgin Atlantic, I was like, you know, early 20s, and he must have been like around your age, I think, like, you know, early to mid 40s. And I just remember thinking at the time, I wish I'd paid attention, but he was putting on, you know, parties. We were partying at his house in Oxford. Then I was partying in a room in LA with him. Then I'm in Joburg for the launch of Virgin Cola for this mental party that we had. And, you know, and I'm thinking, he owns the airline, he owns a record company, and then all other stuff that I didn't, you know, knew he owned until I joined Virgin Startup. And you go to the Battleship building in Paddington, and there's a list on the wall, and I counted like 220 companies before I got called in for a meeting, and I was just like still going through the names of the businesses that he owns, you know.
Yeah. One of the things that surprised me was how much he attributes his success to luck. You know, he always just, he said, I'm very lucky so many times that I picked up on it, that that I just started counting how many times he was saying I'm very lucky, you know, in almost every sentence he'll attribute something to luck. And when you look at his story, I guess there is like real luck there. I mean, the fact that he survived most of his endeavors is lucky, but it's just interesting to see someone at that level attribute so much to luck as well.
And back to yourself then, Jason, you've built multiple 7-figure businesses yourself, but you didn't obviously start out like that. What did life look like before any of this started working for you?
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, they say that your biggest kind of values or your highest values are derived from your biggest perceived voids as a kid. And I do believe that, you know, we become, you know, there's the whole saying, you know, tough times create strong people create easy times, and all this kind of stuff. And I see that. And I guess my biggest perception of a void as a child was just like security, a lack of security, basically. So it wasn't money. It was just, we had bailiffs knocking on the door. I only lived with my mum. My dad had left, and it was kind of moving place to place. And it was like, there was no security. I didn't have a father figure until I was about 6. And I guess that was just baked into me that I valued security. So, when I was, when I was about 14, or just before my 14th birthday, I wanted this bike. And the funny thing is, we lived on this estate, and every Friday, all the kind of mums used to sit down on the steps in the summer and on the block that we used to live on, and they used to talk about the week and kind of moan about the week. And I used to pick up on, being a nosy little like 13-year-old kid, I used to pick up on the fact that they used to kind of had this view that money was like evil, my boss is greedy, you know, all those kind of sayings. And the reason I picked up on it is because there's this guy called George who used to come, Roy, who used to come down from the top flat, and he used to take people's money and do a syndicate lottery. And for the next 10 minutes, they were talking about how amazing their life would be if they got the money. And I remember thinking, you've just like, do you like money or don't you like money? And that was weird. But coincidentally, that year, I wanted this BMX for my birthday. And my parents said, look, we can't afford the BMX, but if you can raise half the money, we'll give you half the money and you can go and get it on your birthday in October. And I was like, okay, it's a deal. So I started washing cars. I washed this one car, and that day I kind of got some money, and I was telling my friend about it. And my stepdad said, I'm going down the shop. Do you want anything? And I said, I gave him everything I'd earned that day. And I said, could you get me a bucket and sponge for my friend to help me tomorrow? So I'd lost everything again.
Yeah.
And then the next day we washed 4 cars. And then within 4 weeks, I had 4 friends washing up to 4 cars a day, 16 cars a week or something like that. And I just remember thinking, wow, if you use money like this, and you can delegate and kind of do more of the things that you enjoy doing, you still get what you want. Like I can still get this bike, but I'm doing less of the crap and less of the things that I dread doing. And it was like a big light bulb moment. So that was one kind of turning point on how I viewed money, delegation, freedom, if you like. And then when I went into work, I kept having this, I was always talking about this idea of being free, financially free, because I valued that. And then we found out I was going to have a baby. And I was 22 when we found out I was going to have a baby. And at that point, I had felt like I'd failed, because I everything just come flushing before me like, oh, I'm just basically, he's going to have a life like I had, I'm not ready financially. And it was horrible. It was a horrible time, but it really put a rocket up my backside, because I then said, right, I've got to stop talking about this and I've got to do it. So we moved. At the time I was living in a flat. This is kind of the story of how I really jolted into this thing. We was living at a flat with my partner, who's now my wife. We've been together like 24 years or whatever. And we was going out. All my friends kept asking me to go out the weekend and all this kind of stuff. When I found out I was going to have the baby, I was just like, right, we've got to move. So we moved like 26 miles away to the middle of nowhere to this place called Leatherhead, which you probably know. I didn't know anyone there. No one knew anyone there. And I just started this business in my shed. I was like, right, I'm going to make this work. And I started my own electrical engineering company in a shed in my garden. Didn't get invited out to pubs and bars and all that kind of stuff anymore. And I just got knuckled down and got started. So, wow. But I think the desire to serve people is innately in me. The desire to actually, I don't know whether it's an approval thing because I felt stupid as a kid or whatever, but I want to serve people and I want to do the best in whatever I do for people as well. So I've always been, every single hour, if need be, I will work towards serving someone and making sure they get a good service.
And that was also maybe an exercise in focus, right? By removing yourself away from the distractions and literally just burying yourself away, single-mindedly.
Definitely. It was definitely a lesson in, isolated focus, removing distractions, and just being laser clear on where I was going and stop talking about it and actually just doing it. And one of my boss at the time, who was a phenomenal guy, who's like, I consider him my first mentor, a guy called George. And he said, to be in business, you have to be in business. And I didn't really know what he meant at the time, but what it transpired to mean was, businesses aren't easy. You just have to do it. And then you just have to be in it and keep being in it and keep doing it. And then no one really knows what they're doing. It's just like, you just have to keep showing up and, take the failure, take the lesson and get the rejection and, have the disaster and have the flipping legal battle or whatever it is. And then just keep going and keep going and keep going. And that is how you're in business. If you just stop at the first hurdle, you're not in business anymore. But I think people think that some businesses are miraculously just get this smooth flowing thing. And if you don't, you're doing it wrong. But in actual fact, to be in business, you have to just be in business. You have to just grind it out and do it.
And it's so true, isn't it? And hence, the conversations we I have on here is, designed to kind of, show the mirror up to people who've done that. Mutual friend of ours, we mentioned, Daniel Priestley, like multiple failures before he got to where he is today. So many people that you chat to who tried it and then had that failure and then backed out and gone back to the corporate job, absolutely scared the life out of them. But you're right. You've got to keep going. You've got to be in it. And there's enough examples out there of people who've overcome challenges to get to where they want to be, right?
It's crazy to think that there's not going to be challenges when you do anything, to be honest with you. But we do, because we naturally want the easy route. But
we do.
I think what stops a lot of people starting is the idea or this fantasy that there is a way of doing it without any, there's a right way, or there's like this strategy. There isn't a strategy. There's just there's kind of some fundamental things that work in business. And if you understand basic economics of supply and demand, you basically, that's it, and then there's, how you have to know how to sell something, but really you have to have a good product. If you have a good product, people everything figures itself out. And I think the product's almost the last thing people focus on these days. It's like, how can I do a tripwire funnel and dupe someone? How can I get someone into my product? How can I, persuade them to buy this thing? And they put all this money into the marketing and all the kind of ads and all that kind of stuff, but they actually have a terrible product. So if you just focus on making a great sandwich, eventually everyone will tell people about that sandwich. And if all your effort goes into making that sandwich better every day, it's an amazing sandwich, right? People are going to just come. They'll find you. So, yeah, I don't know. I think just being customer focused, being obsessed with getting a great review from someone, I think that should be first. And then all of the other stuff is, figure out.
So I wanted to let you know about something that I see trip founders up all the time. If you're running a business with international payments, one of the biggest hidden costs is often foreign exchange. World First is built specifically for businesses operating across borders, helping you manage payments, hold multiple currencies, and reduce unnecessary FX costs. They're not a high street bank trying to do everything. They focus purely on international business payments and currency exchange. That's their thing. Switching providers is a commitment, which is why they're giving our listeners 50 fee-free business transactions to properly test their service. Plus, signing up for an account is completely free, and there are no ongoing monthly fees. You've got 60 days from sign up to use them. Head to worldfirst.com/screwit and get your 50 fee-free business transactions. Now back to the podcast.
I like the analogy. And again, I can say it 500 or 600 or 700 times over, from examples on the show, that nobody knows what they're doing, right? And they just figure it out as they go along. It's the 80-20 rule, isn't it? If you get 80% of the things lined up, you're never going to get 100% of things lined up to actually start the thing, whether it's, starting the business, starting the relationship, starting the new job. It just doesn't exist, right?
No, and look at today. I mean, it's even more confusing now for people because they've got all the AI changing every 6 weeks and 3 weeks, and people are buying Mac Minis to set up AI agents to set up teams and run their business, and everything's autonomous and no one's doing anything and everyone's earning money. And it's like, well, no, AI doesn't create value. It's not serving another human. There's no where's the human side of this stuff? Eventually, it's not going to be a load of robots serving robots. There's no value for humans. So I think people forget that you go to work or you start a business for 2 reasons. One's for money, so you can pay for your lifestyle, things that you actually love. But 2 is for fulfillment and to feel useful. And if I said to a plumber who hates his job, look, mate, you don't have to go to work anymore. I'll just pay your wages. You just got to sit at home on the sofa every day. I guarantee he'll feel like a bum. He won't want to sit at home on a sofa every day because we're just not made for that.
Agreed.
It's like we want to get our hands dirty and feel useful and provide value to someone. So I know this from trading because there was about a 3-year period where I was just trading every day. And I just felt like I'd lost my sense of purpose altogether. It was like, I'm not really getting fulfilled clicking some buttons on a screen. And that's when Daniel Priestley was like, mate, you have to come out and mingle with some entrepreneurs. And I was like, you got to leave your house, man. And I was like, all right, I'll leave my house.
Okay, so with your story, that leads us in nicely. So when did you realize or when did you start making content, and when did you realize that content wasn't just marketing, but it was actually becoming the business?
So I'd never spoke to a camera. I'd never done any public speaking or anything like that. And what I did is I started writing a newsletter every Sunday. And the newsletter, I would sit about 3 or 4 hours and write this newsletter. Basically, all of the knowledge that I knew. I wrote 86 of them, and it's basically everything I know. I don't know any more than that. And then I'd put them out on a Sunday, and I would go on Instagram, and I would just like start posting, get this newsletter. It's about this, this, and this, and this. And I started getting people signing up to this thing. And at the same time, I was looking around thinking there's no one really sharing anything of value around finances, investing, trading. It's all like scammy BS, snake oil stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let people watch me trade every morning in my house. I'm going to open my account and we're just going to have a discussion. And I did that, and I started doing that for free. Started building up a little community and posting out these newsletters. And then I was getting people asking me, I'm dyslexic. Do you have an Audible version? So I started doing a podcast version of it. And then I thought, this is obviously valuable information. People are getting a lot of value from this. I'm being completely transparent. There's nothing bad anyone can say because I'm opening my office every morning to people. I'm sharing everything I know. And I had this kind of philosophy that if I share everything I know and be really, really genuine and transparent and don't expect anything in return, I think we can build a great following. So I started YouTube. I sat down and recorded my first video. It took me about 4 hours to record this 4-minute video, and the attempt is out there publicly as well, by the way, so you can go and check it out. But it was horrific. And from that moment on, I thought, well, it'll get easier tomorrow. Let's just try again. And you just keep sharing and sharing and sharing. And anyway, I just got better and better, and we built a phenomenal community of people who, raving fans, I guess, people who like, there's nothing bad they can say. They got a lot of value from me. And the miraculous thing was after about 8 years of doing that, as an analyst, I thought I better check out this analytics thing on YouTube because there's probably some clues there as to what works and what doesn't work. And I spent about a week looking at the analytics and thought, wow, this is obvious. I've wasted a lot of time here because that clearly works. And we put this one video out after I analyzed all that, and I went from about 40,000 subscribers to about 500,000 within 18 months. And it was one video, which is the one video that became the biggest in the world, which is Trading for Dummies. And it was phenomenal. It opened these floodgates of people who just came in, watched it, bought everything that was in the back end. Yeah. And it was just amazing to witness, really. But it just proved the concept that the more you give away, the more you share, people will pay you for implementation. And that was really, it was based on that philosophy.
And what was the moment in that journey then where you decided to literally say, screw it, just do it, and you went all in on that? Was it shortly after that 18-month span or during that 18-month span?
Yeah, I really the studio that I've been investing since I was 22. I've made a living from being right more than I'm wrong and making decent investments and feeding my family that way since I was 20, 22, 23. And for someone who's been in stock market, real estate, all different funds, angel investments, precious metals, everything. I've tried everything. I've done speculation. I've done options trading. I've done futures, Forex, everything. That year was the year that YouTube surpassed every single investment I'd ever made. And it was time for me to think, this is a good investment. So, that's when we built this. We built this 100 grand YouTube studio that I'm sitting in right now. We're going all in, this and the year, probably the last 12 months has been the year that I've been right now. This is the main thing. I just want to share via this platform.
Yeah. And was there anything like holding you back before that? Like fear, identity, money, responsibility?
Oh God. when I started YouTube, as I say, I'd never spoken to a camera. I've got softbox lights in my face, which is the most, I don't know. I mean, when you first do that, it's hard to remember now, but I remember the feeling of when you first do that, it's the most unnatural feeling in the world to have softbox lights and a camera. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to talk. But I knew that if I was going to I knew the message was valuable and I knew people were getting value from it. And that gave me fulfillment. And that was following a long run of me not having any fulfillment. So I just thought, if I'm going to reach more people, the most efficient way to do this is through sight and sound. And if I can get myself on this platform and reach global audiences, that's going to be the most efficient way to do this. So I need to get out of my way and crack this thing. So it was just a case of like showing up every day, doing it, being a bit better, analyzing what I was doing the day before didn't work, and trying again, but also having an efficient workspace. So setting up in a way that basically removing friction from the whole process. So like, don't pack all the cameras away and pack all the mics away, because that's another thing you've got to go and do when you do it the next time. And that's just one thing that makes you not want to do it. Overthinking scripts and all that kind of stuff. Never been a fan of scripts. I just want to kind of, if it's my expertise, I just want to bullet point what I want to talk about, and it should just roll off my tongue like it is right now. Yeah. If you script everything, then you're kind of you could be talking about something that isn't overly comfortable with you. Therefore, you're getting outside your lane. Therefore, you risk losing your audience. But two, it's another fear that you've got to you're almost becoming not yourself by being a script instead of yourself. So I think humans really have a great way of spotting authenticity and just realism. I think we just ooze that when we tap into it, and people can smell it a mile off. So, just like the feeling of being able to share in the comments to say, thank you, this really helped me. It's just amazing. It was great for me.
And how do you get over that initial? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, and my audience will know. I recorded my first podcast interviews in like January 2017. In January, I didn't publish them till the May, because I spent 5 months just thinking about, is anyone going to like my voice? Is anybody even going to listen to this? All of those things, and having just been out to Dubai and helped my best friend launch his podcast, and he did exactly the opposite of what I told him to do, which was don't script anything, do exactly what you do and what I do, which is bullet points, because it's your subject that you have the most knowledge of in the world, right? Which he's been in it 30 years, and he scripted everything by word for word, had the teleprompter, and then hated everything that he did for the 4 hours we were in the studio, right, recording like 5 episodes, because he was like, I look wooden. I'm not expressing anything. And I was like, well, no shit, Sherlock.
You look wooden because you're focused on some lines, you're trying to read, and you're like, oh, what does that say? And
So how do you, what's your advice for somebody who is looking to create content, and they, feel that fear of literally looking at a camera? And we've all got, mobile, media studios in our phones now, right? And it's second nature for, say, like my teenage kids to do that. But for people who aren't and want to do that for the first time, what are a couple of takeaways that you could share?
The first thing is, I think a lot of the fear, fear, you can't fear the unknown. You're basically fearing a specific thing based on what you've labeled negative that's happened to you in the past, or you've seen happen to someone else, right? So you can't fear something you don't know. So what you're probably fearing is someone mugging you off or someone basically just ridiculing you. So you have to deal with that first of all, and you have to kind of go back to where that happened maybe in your past, and figure out where that happened. I'll give you an example. There was a time when I was at school, my English teacher, we did these SATs, or these mock SATs, and I was a bit of a class joker, but it was the day that he was going to give us the results. And he made us stand up. He made me stand up, and he made a couple of other boys stand up. And I just remember feeling so cocky, because I thought, oh yeah, he's going to tell us that we've passed, that, I've done all right. And he basically said, you ought to be ashamed. You've done terribly. And I remember thinking, I wish the floor would swallow me up right now, you know.
Yeah.
But what happened was, after that, you know, if you'd asked me immediately what I thought of Mr. Shillito, I would have said he was an absolute, you know, a-hole. I can't stand the guy. And that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But what happened as a result of that is I went to the library every lunch to kind of brush up on stuff. And I found Microsoft Excel, which I then fell in love with. I started becoming fascinated with doing charts and formulas and projections and all this kind of stuff. And then when I left school, I went into Microsoft Money and I started really getting in tune with my finances. Then I went into like Excel programming and Google Sheet programming and developed tools that literally have allowed me to become financially independent. I've shared them with other people. I've built tools for my business, you know. So if you was to ask me if that was a bad thing that happened back then, it's absolutely not a bad thing. I absolutely love Mr. Shillito for doing that to me because of him, I've been able to become financially independent, right? And it's the same goes for, you find people have been shown up in some way, or they've seen someone shown up and they don't want that to happen to them. Well, try and see the benefits in what happened last time, because they'll always be there. You're just missing them. So that's one thing. And the other thing is embrace the hater comments, because there's a lot of this kind of only surround yourself with positive people and all that kind of stuff. I get where that's coming from, but I tell you what, I surrounded myself with people that were telling me I was great for a long time once, and all I got was fat, and I got complacent, and, you know, I realized that everyone telling me I was great was actually, they didn't have lives that I wanted to have. I wasn't even where I wanted to be, you know, and you can easily start to believe that. The thing with hater comments is they only hurt when they're true. So if someone says to you, you know, if you've put on a bit of weight and you're not too happy about it, and someone says, you fat git, you know, chances are that's going to hurt, but only because it's like a mechanism that says to me, you're not happy with that, so you better change something about that. Do something about it. If you're not happy, do something about it, right? If you call me fat and I love being fat, then I'm not going to see that comment. Like if someone says to me about something about, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about with investing or whatever, I don't see those comments because I'm not tuning into them. It's just, oh yeah, whatever. You know, it doesn't hurt. But if I step outside my lane and try and talk about something that I don't quite know, you know, too well, and then someone goes, he doesn't know what he's talking about, that might hurt. And I might go, oh God, you know, I really didn't know what I was talking about. And that's made me not want to do any more. But actual fact, you either skill up in that area and get your facts straight, or just get back in your lane. Start talking about things that you do know. So I'm all for the hater comments. You know, I bring them on. I love them, because it's like the quicker you can hate on me, the quicker I can identify my self-loathing or what I'm doing wrong in myself, so I can correct that. There's always going to be people that disagree with your opinion. That's a different thing, right? And again, it's crazy to think that it's crazy to have a belief that everyone should agree with you. I think that is so bizarre, you know, so bizarre. Huh? Occasionally I look at comments because I like to reply to. So with YouTube, here's a tip. Very, very powerful way to boost your YouTube is to engage with the community. You know, they want to see you as a community creator. So I do spend some time going in and commenting and replying to other people's comments on there. But you know, things like TikTok and that, nah. I just no.
And can you remember the first time where, you know, you got some kind of like hateful comment?
Do you know what? I've probably had one. I probably count on one hand that I've seen them. One's about my hair at some point when I was receding a little bit, but it wasn't like a nasty thing. But I didn't really like it about myself, so I went to Turkey and got a hair transplant.
Right.
You know,
problem solved.
The other thing, you know, you get kind of people questioning your ideals and idealisms and stuff, and I try to just be diplomatic. I try to just back my answers up with facts and universal principles and a way of a language where everyone can agree on, you know. So yeah, I don't remember any hate comments, to be honest with you.
It's good. And I know this won't be the first time you get asked a question like this, but if somebody today wants to start, they've got zero audience, what would you not do that most people do wrong?
Oh, really good. All right. There's quite a lot of things that I would do, but I'll give you a big one.
Go on.
People speak in a way. How can I say it? They speak in a way where you can tell that they're trying to not look stupid in front of other experts in their field. Okay, so fitness professionals do this a lot. Musicians, like guitar teachers and things like that, but accountants and tax people like that. And what they'll do is they'll forget that the person typing in information on tax, right, or how to play the guitar, is someone who doesn't know like anything. They're way, way below you in terms of knowledge. They just haven't got a clue, right? So what people do is they produce this piece of content and they say, you can, let me give you an example. My kid was learning to play guitar and he found this tutor on YouTube. He just wanted to know how to play like a simple, simple chord. And then the tutor was like, this is how you do a C chord. And of course, if you want the Ionian scale of C, you can do this, this, and this. And it was like, you're only saying that in case another guitar tutor watches you and says you don't know your stuff. That's the only reason you're saying it, because my son hasn't got a clue what a scale is or Ionian scale. So that's an example. But as soon as you start to do that and you say things to not look stupid in front of another expert, the person actually who you're trying to serve just switches off. They're like, oh, it's too complicated. I don't know what you're talking about, Fitness professionals, they do it all the time. You see them like talking about calorie deficits, and they should just say, you eat less than you burn or whatever. And instead they're going, then there's NEAT deficit and this deficit and that deficit. And you're like, oh, you're just trying to say that because you don't want so-and-so to ridicule you, for not being as intricate in your analysis than them. When really the person searching for that information, they don't have a clue what so no. I think that's a big one. Just try not to impress other people in your field. And remember, you're talking to someone who doesn't know. That's probably the biggest thing, actually.
And it's that thing, isn't it? Like competitors, you know what it's like yourself. You don't have time to go and watch all of the content that your competitors are putting out anyway. Not in a million years.
No. Just don't have competition. Like don't have competition. There's no such thing. Just focus on doing a great job. That's it. I wouldn't have a clue who my competitors are. I don't even know if there are any or what they're doing, but I don't care.
Yeah, I love that. Tell me a little bit about Scorecard. We were talking offline before about Daniel Priestley, mutual friend, etc. And you were first angel investor in that business, and the business looks like it's flying now. I know lots of friends who use that. I've used it myself. Yeah. You've got templates on there. I was just looking at it earlier as well because my best friend was talking about it yesterday. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so ScoreApp was a digital software as a service that was built out of a service-based business, and it's scorecard marketing. So it's things where you can collect data-rich information on an entrepreneur's audience. And you can serve them in a bespoke way to meet them where they're at and, give this kind of tailored customer journey in the back end of a scorecard. So it's much more than just a survey. It's actually a very clever rapport building and customer journey tool. And I got it, because I was so involved with it in early stages. We really put our heart and soul into seeing it really as a product. So instead of looking at it as a lead generator, which I think a lot of people look at it at, we look at it as a product in itself. So you take this, you're going to get value. You're going to have a product. This is a free product for you. So what we did with it is we ended up asking a lot of great questions, finding out a lot of information about people, about 50 questions. And then we analyze the back end, and then we give them a total score. And then depending on the score that they get, we give them a specific video to meet them where they're at so that they trust us and they felt understood that we really get the situation they're in because you scored this, right? And we put a lot of effort into each of those videos. And then what we do is we give them everything we know. So when you complete the scorecard, you get a report and you get this, this strategy PDF. And we made that 55 pages long because it was everything. It's basically like everything in the book, just go and do it. And I think what happened is people were like, wow, this person knows a lot about me. 2, they really understand my problem because they've just said that on that video. And 3, they've just given me everything. Like, so what I found out about content is the longer you can get someone to spend time with you, the more they trust you. And then you reduce the barrier to entry for them to buy. Right. Yeah, so you almost don't need salespeople if you can just break that barrier down of trust. They'll just sell themselves on everything, and if the products are good. Yeah. So my idea is just give everything away. They receive this big report. They know what they've got to do now. 1, it's a little bit overwhelming because there's so much. 2, it's a unique framework to me that they can't compare to anyone else. And 3, they're just going to pay for implementation anyway. They're not going to, ChatGPT's a better trader than me. ChatGPT's a better investor than me, better investor, property expert, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. The reason I've got a personal trainer is not because I don't know how to lift weights. It's because I want someone to kick my ass every morning and make sure I do it, right? That's why you pay. So what happened is we put that on the back of the video that went out on YouTube. The YouTube video did 8.5 million views. And in the back of that was this scorecard that was meeting everyone where they were at and then selling them these unique products specific to them. And we'd ended up doing $12 million on that funnel in 10 months, which was, it blows my mind. Honestly, it blows my mind. But it was incredible to witness. And is that... And then we built the template for that and put it on ScoreApp.
And I was going to say people could literally find that because I was looking at it earlier on the scorecard on scoreapp.com / Jason Graystone Blueprint, basically, just by looking for that on there.
Amazing.
And was that, we'll put a link to that on there as well, but is that, am I right in saying that's like organic? You generated that, or are you using paid ads to drive people there?
I've never ever placed an ad in my life.
That's why.
So we're just never. We don't even have an ad account. So we've just organic, and that was the idea. So there was a guy called Stuart Wilde. I don't know if you know Stuart Wilde. He used to run seminars in the 80s and I think early 90s, and he passed away in about 2018, I think. But phenomenal guy, and he did this seminar called Mastery of Money, and I watched it just after my son was born, and he comes out and he says, I'm going to teach you how to make money in an esoteric way, and it's basically not scratching and clawing and competing and beating you down your competition, all that, what we just said. Instead, it's raising your energy, being more life force, give out with love and creativity, and then feel everything come into you naturally as an outpouring of that love and creativity. And when you do that right, people show up. They'll lower themselves in through the ceiling, he says, crawl under the door, climb over the fence. They'll be there, right? And when they show up, all you need is a very efficient and organized way to bill them. And something really resonated with me on that, because it was like, what a lovely way to do business. You just give proper care into a product and get people a result and just watch what happens. And when I started, this is the interesting thing, when I went back into business, so when we went into this whole online education thing, I was fortunately in a position where I didn't need money. So what I didn't want to do is start something that I would resent. And I thought, well, let's give without expectation and see if Stuart's theory stands up, And it's amazing. Like, I often ask business owners, what would your business look like if you didn't need money? What products would you create? How would you speak to your staff? How would you show up? And it's a real powerful question, because when you deliver without needing or wanting or scarcity or any of that, or urgency, genuinely give without wanting anything back in return, they just show up. They just show up. They're banging your door asking, can you, do you have a course on this? Do you have a program on this? Do you coach one-on-one? And it's almost impossible not to make more money. So we built all that in the back end and made it as automated as possible. And then we just dropped this video in, and that video just went nuts. And it was like, I don't know if you remember the Lemmings, the computer game, but they used to drop out the sky. And if they hit something, that they would bounce back. But if you just create a frictionless ramp of beautiful products, they just sell themselves and go and go and go and go and go. And it's just, we just unloaded this like floodgate into the bottom of this funnel. And it was just, it was amazing to watch. Amazing.
And what do you think like finally clicked? Have you ever like, analyzed?
When we analysed the video?
Yeah. Like you can kind of see the growth, can't you, when people are coming on and you can just see the trajectory going.
Yeah, the biggest thing was, instead of like the product ecosystem, the way people create them is usually they have something free and then something, maybe 500 quid or something. Yeah. And then they have like a big 10 grand thing or 20 grand thing or whatever it might be. Instead of having those three things, what we did is we just split the ideal lifetime value over multiple products to smooth the ramp. So instead of having 3 products that equated to 20 grand, we'd just go, do you know what? There's a bit of a jump here. How about we just put another product in between that one and that one, and then put another product in between that one and lower the prices on them all. And the idea is you get the lowest, so that the lowest thing that they pay for just seems insanely valuable compared to anyone else's stuff, that they go, I can't believe that's that cheap. The next thing just must be amazing. And that's not even expensive. So they buy that. And then they buy everything. They just buy the whole lot, rather than you trying to get a salesperson to convince them over some big wall that costs 25 grand. It's just like, no, here's 5 products that cost 3 grand or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's, I guess smoothing out the product ecosystem by adding more products that they can sell themselves on. And again, that just suits me, because I don't want to run loads of events and do loads of in-person stuff. I'm happy to charge less and sit at home and have more time. Right. Yeah. Maybe it is a unique thing for me, but as we witnessed on that YouTube video, we made way more than most businesses doing that, which was crazy.
Tell me a little bit about your book. What do you protect like the most fiercely, like in your life today, that you didn't before?
What do I protect?
Yeah,
my time. Yeah. I live in an absolute bubble, and very, very critical around what I say yes to, what partnerships, who I work with, and just there has to be a fair exchange going on in every interaction. It's like, I want to spend time with my family. I want to, create content and share value with the world. And I like tinkering about, man. I just play my guitars and, make my food and work on my fitness, and just time. I've just been really crucial around time and health and family, really. So yeah, I don't have, a lot of people were kind of shocked when I say this, but I don't really have any big goals or aspirations. I just want to live every day like today, and hopefully hopefully reach more and more people by just as a byproduct of keeping this habit that I'm in and this routine that I'm in. So yeah, contentment.
Yeah, no, it's I've kind of resonate with that more and more as I've gotten older, and a question I was going to ask you was, is there anything you'd actively warn ambitious founders not to chase? Because I'm like you now. It's like,
yeah,
I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I just, again, want to spend time with my kids. I love meeting super interesting people that I haven't connected with before, like you. The platform enables me to do that. I love spending time with those people and pursuing stuff that I enjoy. And for me, that's, snowboarding. It's throwing myself in the sea here every morning. It's, it's playing golf on a Friday with my mates. It's all those things. I don't need to necessarily conquer the world anymore, which I might have wanted to do before, because it's fulfillment, it's contentment, right?
Yeah. I think knowing when enough is enough, right? So I'll tell you a quick story about George Turnbull, my first boss again. We were on when I was in his van, he used to pick me up in his van and we used to drive to London. And one morning I said that I wanted a Lexus IS 200 car, right? I was probably 18 or 19 at the time when they came out. And he was like, how much does that cost? And I was like, it's about £250 a month. And he said, but how much does it really cost? And I said, I don't know what you mean. And he said, well, what about wear and tear, the tire replacement once a year, the insurance, the MOT, the fuel, the tax, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know. So he said, unless you've priced it up to the penny, you haven't really considered actually owning it. You know, it's just a dream. And I was like, fair enough. So I went home that night on a spreadsheet, funnily enough, broke it all down. I took it back into him and it was like £600 a month. And I was like, yeah, I didn't realize, like, I actually don't want the car at that price. I don't value it at that. But he said, why don't you do this with everything? You know, what would your dream life look like? And I was like, I'll go and figure it out. So I went home, did it all, you know, what kind of flat I would like to live in, what kind of, where I'd be happy in terms of how much I spend on my shopping bill and clothes and travel and all this kind of stuff. I took it into him and he was like, you don't really want that. You've just written that because so-and-so's got it, you know? And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I crossed it off and I ended up with this real, like, as real and as truthful list, price list of what would make me happy. So if I got to this position, that is genuinely what I'd be happy with. And of course, when I reached that, because I knew what I wanted in the first place and what would make me happy and what would make me content in the first place, when I surpassed that, everything else is really a bonus, you know? Yeah. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't know where they're going. They're on this kind of train where one day everything's going to work out. You know, one day it'll be all right. And then they're on the train and then the doors open at a station and they're like, oh, that looks nice, you know, but I'll get off on the next one and I'll just get the next million, the next 10 million, 50 million, 100 staff or whatever it is. And then what happens is the train derails, they lose everything. They lose their money, relationships all over the place. They have to give half their money to the relationship that they haven't paid attention to. You know, everything's all over the place. Nothing's really working out. And they think, I should have just got off on that stop. That would have done me. That looked all right back there, you know, but they're looking back at it retrospectively. Whereas I don't think enough people sit and take the time to figure out where they're going and what would actually make you content. Because if you can do that, once you get there, you actually feel it. And as long as you can stop buying things that aren't really important to you and trying to look like someone that you're not, then, and that all comes down to mental freedom, which is all in my book as well, you'll be content and you'll know when enough is enough. And I honestly think after meeting all these people from entrepreneurs on Necker and all over the place, I honestly believe that just contentment is the goal. You know, everyone just asks me, how the hell do you not have gold? Like, how the hell do you not want, but I can see that they want it. You know, I can see that they want.
Yeah.
I think freedom, true freedom is contentment and just being happy with yourself. And you only get that if you know what you want in the first place, or who you truly are and what would truly make you happy in the first place.
Yeah, and I've definitely, you know, discovered this over the last year, and, you know, through a few series of life events. But for me, it's like minimizing everything, not taking on more things, because you've got to take something out. If you're going to say yes to something, you've got to say no to something else, right? And if you just keep collecting stuff, you don't simply have the time to focus on the things you truly love. You know, as you said, spending time with your kids or your hobbies and the stuff that we used to love. Like I found again, I'm going back to the music that I used to listen to in my teenage years and revisiting all that, and the sports I used to do as well. And you're suddenly like, I want to make time for that, because that's like me time now. Like my kids are a little bit older, right? And you suddenly just think, what do I want to fill it with? I don't want to fill it with just saying yes to stuff that people are sending me online just because it fuels my ego, right?
Yeah. But it's interesting because the older you get, the more you want to revert to being the kid, right?
Yeah.
When I was in Disney in 2012, I took my family to Disneyland, and we were just going up to the gates, and the old boy that worked there is like 78 years old or something, and he clamped our ticket and he said, "Go and be a kid again." And I remember looking at everyone just thinking, that's all everyone here wants. They just want to be a kid. Like, they were running through the thing. You know, laughter, smiles, and it just rounds off to the story I said at the beginning. You know, you already have it in you. You have a lot of freedom already in you. You've chosen to make it more complex than it needs to be.
Agreed.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I feel we've come full circle with the chat, which is like perfect. And I've just got a couple of quick fire questions to finish off. But before that, Jason, I always ask, if somebody is listening right now and they're stuck in a job that they hate, but they're scared to make that leap, to take that jump, what's the smallest move they can make this month? What's a move that they can make this month to get out of that, mental freedom, maybe get out of that mental trap that they're in their own head, that they can't do that?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down. I think a lot of it, the first freedom is mental freedom. It's basically letting go of any memory baggage, making sure that you understand how that served you, making sure that you're not carrying any resentment, anything that's going to make you lower your self-worth and not ask people for sales and things like that. Because if you've got all that, it doesn't really matter. If you do launch a business, you won't ask for a sale. You'll discount to your friends. You'll give people bargain basement prices, and that's a recipe for disaster. So a lot of that's just self-worth stuff, and the self-worth stuff is just coming from stuff you're carrying around with you that it's only half true. I was saying to someone the other day, imagine you walk in and you find your partner cheating on you, right? At that moment in time, it's like the worst thing in the world. And then you develop a fear of going out and dating, and you have a trust problem. And then 20 years later, if I bump into you in the street and I say, was that the worst thing in the world? The chances are you're going to say, no, it's the best thing in the world because I met so-and-so and I've had these kids and I've been all around the world, right? It's like, well, the fact that it took you 20 years to go from the worst thing to the best thing and see that it was just a thing is a complete inefficiency, right? It was just a thing. You were just blind to the positives that thing gave you back then. Of course you were. So imagine if you could just see that in like 5 minutes, So a lot of the time it's just going through all of those fears that you've got, trying to pinpoint why you've got the fear, and then try and see the good that came out of whatever that thing that you labeled negative. I think that's a really powerful exercise to do. After doing that, you'll start having this new feeling of actually, yeah, I can do this. I can do that. And then you've just got to bite the bullet. And if it's creating content, you've just got to load a camera up. You're going to be horrible. It's going to cringe you out, and you just have to keep doing it. You've got value inside of you. You're doing a disservice to people by not sharing that value. So go and share it.
Oh, 100% agree with that. That's really good. Really good answer to leave people with. Absolutely. So a couple of quick fire questions, and I think this will be really interesting to get your answer from someone who was, not that long ago on Necker Island with when most people I ask on the show, what's one entrepreneur who inspires you? Richard's name comes up all the time, but you were there with like 40 other super interesting entrepreneurs as well. So first question, short and sharp answer, whatever comes into your head, Jason, but what is an entrepreneur for you?
Entrepreneur is someone who can, who's great at passionate about solving a problem, and is influential enough to get other people on board to buy into their vision, to basically leverage other people, leverage resources to bring the thing to life, and then go and, serve people with that problem. That, unfortunately, is that's what an entrepreneur is to me. And I think it comes with people who think they're entrepreneurs and try that, figure out that actually it's not as easy as you thought. But true entrepreneurship to me is about being passionate about solving a problem and then leveraging other influence and getting other people on board to buy into that vision, not just team, but people to buy the thing as well. So
good show.
I think you just have to be an influential person. And I think that a great way to practice being influential is just to do content, just start sharing your message, and you'll become more and more passionate about it. People buy into how you speak, and then you become better at pitching and going to talk to people. And that's an entrepreneur to me.
And I think, like point you made earlier, like your audience deserves for you to share that because you've got the knowledge inside it, and you're being selfish by keeping that to yourself, right? Second question for you: what for you would constitute a scale-up business?
What would constitute
a scale-up business?
A scale-up business.
Yeah.
Scale-up business to me is all about kind of cookie cutter. So you need a lot of. I think where people go wrong with scale-up, they assume that they can open a McDonald's, right, as an example, and then we're going to start a new McDonald's here. So we'll just kind of use this front of house guy over here as well. And then we'll get the same kind of, the person doing the admin here, and we'll use them here as well.
Yeah.
And they basically stretch a business rather than scale. A scale is where you cookie cutter that. There's only going to be a certain amount of people that go into McDonald's in that area. So you need to leave that be, and then you need to duplicate that. But if you've got a workable model that's profitable and working really, really well, it's very easy to then get investment to say that we need this again. And that, to me, is scale. That's scale where you're doubling instantly. So I think, scaling a business by just running more ads is not. I think that, of course, there's a truth to that, and there's an element of that works, but it's almost a dangerous trap, because if you're scaling a business with ads, you're basically flooding something that could break rather than scaling it, by cookie cutter. So to me, it's about people, being great with people, employing more people, leadership, teams, and systems.
Nice.
And delegation for sure.
Last one. What do you think this country could be doing more of to encourage more people to start businesses, scale businesses, start creating content, all of those things?
Wow. I mean, it needs to stop doing what it's doing, first of all. And before we start a list of things that it should do, there's probably a big list of things it shouldn't do. But just tax incentive. I mean, I just can't see it happening. At the moment, it's trying to tax everything. Yeah. I think some tax reward schemes or some tax incentives at an early stage, maybe to 25 or maybe even like to 25 years old, you're incentivized to start something and then pay the tax later on, or just incentivized to build and yeah. I mean, there's so much wrong with the spending habits of the government, in my opinion, at the moment, that it's hard for me to even see what they should be doing. But I think, just taking a leaf out of Dubai's book in a way where they're incentivizing growth, they're incentivizing entrepreneurs, and that will ultimately solve all the problems, because everyone will earn more, everyone will pay less tax, and
you can see what happened. You can see what's happening, right? You just look at the numbers.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. It so doesn't make sense that I think it must be deliberate. There must be a bigger thing going on that I'm missing. I must be stupid, but
give me an entrepreneur who inspires you, and that can be, somebody historical, somebody you met, someone who's recently come on your radar, even, but someone that you'd want to shout out to the audience.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of a sellout saying Richard Branson again, but I was with him, and they say he's like the billionaire that all billionaires want to be, right? And when you meet him and you see that he's really got it together, like he's got the family love him, the family balance, he's got this health balance, he's got, he lives on an island, he's just got this lovely life. And when I think about some of the other billionaires like, Bezos or Elon, I can't help but feel a little bit solemn. I feel sad when I think about those guys. I see them speak and I feel a sadness. Whereas when I look at Richard Branson and I think of Virgin as a brand, I just feel happy. It's like happiness and fun and joy. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So the way that he's got that balance right, and the way that he's doing things that he really does love, and people love him, I think there's a lot to be. That's a great achievement. And then aside from mainstream, I would say my first boss, George, who's just he taught me a lot about balance. He taught me a lot about not looking up to people. He taught me a lot about knowing who I was as a person and just how to serve people at the highest degree. Don't do things half-assed. Make sure you go all in. And what's the point in doing something average? Make sure you're the best you can be at it. And I got a lot of great traits in business from him. So it goes to him, definitely.
Nice. And other than our mutual friend Daniel, Richard Branson, anyone having been on the show that you think in your network that you think would make a great guest on the show that's got a good Screw It, Just Do It story?
Oh, wow.
Don't have to answer me
I do
now.
actually. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know quite a few. Do you want me to say them?
If you can think of one or two, brilliant, and I'll come back to you for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lady called Carly Myers who is an AI consultant, a great AI expert, and she's speaking on the stages in Vegas at Go High Level and things like that. But she has a great backstory.
Okay.
And I think she'd be great for your audience as well.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, Jason, people can clearly find you online through your YouTube channel. Book, I'm assuming wherever people get their books, they can read your book and find out more about freedom.
Yeah, you can get the book in all the bookstores and all that, but Amazon's probably the easiest.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. Super.
Thank you for having me.
Loved hearing your story, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.